Is that accurate? 190. Yeah, wow, episode 193. Hey team, welcome back. We're going to continue working on the Spelljammer combat and exploration art that we've been working on for the past few months here. This book is going to be ready to go. God's willing, it's going to be in September. Give me a second here to check my signal, make sure I'm coming through loud and clear, and then we'll get to work here for 100 minutes. Hold on real fast. Loud and clear, and then we'll get... Sounds pretty loud and clear to me, yep. Let's see, I've got a little bit of an intro spiel to go through. And then we'll be officially live here. So let's see. Hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements that we publish online as PDFs. I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition for the past few years. You can see a slew of work that I've produced before in links that are in the description down below. They're all extensive previews. So if you're a D&D enthusiast, you'll be able to have an eye on the kind of work that I build. If you're just here for the art, hold on real quick. Yeah, if you're here for the art, there's about 150 illustrations to take a look at, so feel free to peruse as well. If you want to support the channel, I've just posted that I'm live on Twitter. You can get notification when I'm live in the future as well if you follow me at Phil Kearney. Otherwise, I've got a Patreon you can support for a few bucks that we'll be more active with next month, so you can hold off and have me prove it before you purchase. And otherwise, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon here on YouTube to help push the algorithm for support, to let them know that long-form design streams like this are still interesting and that you don't have to be on Twitch to do it. So this book cover we created back around episode 15. On the DMsGuild ribbon, it'll appear to be about this large, so hopefully that's going to be a compelling image for people to want to click into to find out more of what we got going on, and we've got a lot going on here. We're working on the equipment and ship section of the book, illustrating objects and items that characters can use. This illustration in particular is, as we've been playing with it for the past, I think I'm going to stick around here for today, but we've got these cuttlefish fighter craft and a lithid nautiloid in the background. This page is talking about landing and traversing terrain, solid terrain like ground, liquid terrain like water, though in space or other planes of existence that could be literally anything. I mean, like ice comes to mind with solid objects, whatever. These vessels either sea or land worthy, and it'll either have a movement speed, yes or no. If the answer is no, then it's not built to be on that surface and it'll tip over. like if you try to put a galleon on ground, it'll like roll. That's called scuttling, when things get thrown around inside of a ship and disarrayed. So if it doesn't mesh with that land that terrain, then it's going to scuttle when you land. But it can potentially land on, say, solid or liquid terrain, but it just doesn't have a movement speed, which means it's stable if it lands there, but you're not really going to go anywhere. And then if it has a but the words I'm looking for is movement speed. Like the damselfly has a 50-foot movement speed on solid terrain, while a flying fish has movement speed of 15, 35, and 50 on liquid terrain. So on ground, that means that's your movement rate. Like a character has typically a 30-foot movement rate. Ships generally have a 50-foot movement rate when they are able to traverse solid terrain. While this is using the Salts of Ghost Marsh statistics of a flat normal sailing speed of 35 feet per movement, per round, and then 15 feet against the wind and 50 feet with the wind. Of course, this is if you're just trying to traverse that surface. If you have a pilot that's focused on the helm, they can just lift off and fly at incredible speeds at any moment that they want. This is just playing the game of crawling on the ground. Like, what if your Scorpion ship needs to go into a cave and you can't really, like, and you don't want to fly in? Then you could just scuttle chomp your way into the place. So here we're depicting a nautiloid that's on the waterfront, which it's capable of paddling along with its tentacles. And here's some of its baby mecha, which are the cuttlefish, which are fighter craft, which can traverse solid surfaces, but are they can float on water but don't have a speed. So that means that they can swim at half the speed. So they'd be able to swim with a speed of 25. So we're going to continue working on these little cuttlefish. Other works that we are into right now is we have some gridding to do for different size objects just to demonstrate size as part of the Spelljammer ship and equipment section. Like, what does size mean, We've got the navigator working with an orrery for tracking a system, so that'll be a holographic display when we're done with it. And then we've been building the air necklace for Bitchy Zedalia to wear so that she doesn't suffocate while she's carrying at you. Here is the... I don't have anything on this page. This is just equipment. And then the pilot that we've been working on. So I think I'm going to stay here in the cuttlefish for now. Just continue to play with what this is. So give me a second to get back into it. There. Bop, bop. Bop, bop. Line. Shadow. Base. Hey, Onetico, it's good to see you. So we're slogging. We're slogging our way through the mess. I'm going to push up my smudge brush to continue working the surface. And so we do the Spelljammer art 5 days a week, Monday through Friday in the mornings like this. And then Mondays and Thursday nights, like last night, we do Eberron token and cartography art. And then on Saturday, we do commission and personal projects. We'll be working on more Bob Ross art brushes for use in Photoshop and other ASP accepting digital file. No, ABR. It's the Photoshop saves brush configurations and custom brush shapes as ABR files, which I believe Clip Studio can accept as well. So we've been crafting these brushes that we can use for the wet on wet techniques that Bob demonstrates. We have to build custom brushes to duplicate the effects of the stippling and hair brushes that, he's got thousands of little brushes that are all stippling the canvas at the same time to create the results that he wants. So we have to duplicate those physics, and once we do, we can duplicate his techniques. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow in the morning in about 27 hours. We'll be doing that for a couple hours. We built a brush for fluffy clouds and chisels for mountains last week. This week, we're going to mess around with mountains a little bit more just to get more familiar with the chisel tool that we chose. And then we're going to build some tree and foliage brushes, drop in some forest and water. That'll probably end the episode. And then the following Saturday, we'll finish up the piece with some new bush and flower brushes and create some foreground tarmac and happy little trees and forest. So that should probably finish up the piece. So that'll put us around 5 or 6 hours for the landscape piece that we're wishing into existence together on stream. So that's my Saturday stream. I'll probably be picking up some commission work here in the next week or two. Or rather, once I finish that Bob Ross painting, in 3 weeks, I should be beginning a commission project. And we'll make that our Saturday morning thing. And then on Tuesday at lunch, we do a 5e mechanic development stream where we're converting martial character subclass types into Martial Magic kits. If you don't know what Martial Magic is, check out the stream on Tuesday or the 94 episode playlist that we have in my channel. We're at the 193rd episode of this Spelljammer Combat and Exploration project. Since it began in August last year, August 18th, I think, we're coming up on our anniversary for crafting this book, and we are getting very, very close to done with it. So I am incredibly excited about that. So far, this has been a smashing success. I've been pleased with absolutely everything we've been doing inside of it. Darken up that bit. Hopefully once we're out the gate with this thing, we can get some stream friends to spend some time talking with us about it and turning through some pages just to explore the ideas that are inside this book and how easy it is to implement this into your own game systems. And once this is published, then Eberron will be our morning project, Monday through Friday, doing tokens and maps and layout and interior page art, just like this for the Eberron adventure that we've been crafting for the past year. And that will move the Martial Powers project to our Monday-Thursday slot. And then Saturday will remain commissions and personal projects. But I think, hey Tyler. And then we're gonna have to carve out some time to do playtesting. So I want to do some Martial Power playtesting. I'm not 100% on the campaign mode that we'll be using. I'm thinking a hex crawl. Hex crawls are good for mid-tier, and I wanted to test third to 8th level, third through 9th level with the mechanics. Actually, up to 10th would probably be good. That's a 7-level stretch campaign. So I probably want to spend a couple episodes on each level before rotating up. But I'm still cultivating that. So we'll hopefully see that in October. Once this book comes out, I'll have the freedom of space to be able to throw up another playtest. Yay, timely timer. Let's take a slug of coffee. No chasers this morning. It's 6:36. We still have 80 minutes to play. So I'm going to drop the strength of my smudge brush and just smooth this darkness into the form a bit. What you cats got going on today? Damn it, I've been thinking. A dangerous pastime, I know. Specifically, I'm just thinking about the guilds and kingdom system and the army mechanics that we've been developing, and I'm thinking more and more of a 4X resource system tabletop game that can conveniently be played with with D20 proficiency-based level system games. This thing works with Shadow Dark. It works with Pathfinder. It works with Dungeons and Dragons, 3rd edition, 4th, a little bit 4th edition, 5th edition. 4th edition will forever be D&D's bastard child because it went to 30 levels instead of 20. It doesn't properly mesh with the scaling system that we're accustomed to. Beckme, the old original box set series, went to level 36 before attaining immortality and then having a completely different experience point system for ascending through demigod through elder god status. So that's a weird. I think the 20 level array came into effect. I think during Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, because well, hold on. What purpose do you have? Show me your purpose. Where are you coming from? I don't know why you're highlighting. So you gotta go. Window. Blop. Sorry, I got distracted by some grandeur. Grandeur. Baby Natalie. Granulated grandeur. Pixelated perfection. Remember back in the day when an actor was somebody who was on the stage performing live? But then we started paying them a shitload of money to record them in the process, and production value of recorded work became colossal, and then they tried to automate it with AI, and it looked horrible. Acting is a very luxury industry, but then so is being a freelance artist. I don't know. See, from my perspective, as an artist, I look at the rise of the machine and I'm like, well, I don't blame for people for wanting to make artwork fast if there are creators, because it's a massive sinkhole for anyone that can't produce art. They're gonna have to spend a shitload of money and time trying to find art that's appropriate for the work that they're doing. Meanwhile, me, it just takes a shitload of art for me to build the art that I want. If I wanted to use AI, I could be done as quick as anyone else, but then what the fuck have I been doing for the past 30 years? You know? I've talked about this before. I think ultimately what's going to happen from this AI revolution is going to be people appreciating handcrafted work. I am effectively becoming a microbrewer. Give me a Twizzly mustache and come push pixels with me, because we're going oldie school without the AI computer overlord. Like, if you people are going to want authentic artwork and are going to brag about their authentic artwork because AI art is so generic and obvious and easy that there's no prestige in using AI art. It's just production filler. And if that is all you can afford and it's good enough for what your project needs, then I still think that can be fan community content. You can't get paid on DTRPG directly for that work, that you should be publishing it for free on a Patreon, just like anyone else that uses Magic the Gathering art for their compositions, and just acknowledge, hey, I didn't produce any of this. I didn't pay anyone that produced this. I'm just making use of it because it's available. So if you like my ideas, here's some pretty pictures that go with it. Throw me a couple bucks on Patreon and I'll keep doing it. There are plenty of successful RPG content producers that use that business model because they want to have access to a level of art they just simply can't attain on their own. AI is attempting to step over that fan content policy and make people feel like they're purchasing stock art, but they aren't. Like, if you don't have, I guess an easy way of bottom lining it is, if you don't have ownership rights to the material that you're publishing, it should be community content only. And that would resolve a lot of the AI in creator space debacle, in my opinion. It just then becomes an issue of identifying it, but the uncanniness of AI art makes it awfully easy currently. Later it'll be context. So I think us couture designers here, us microbrew handcrafted artists here are going to retain value. One, it is an art. So YouTube has demonstrated repeatedly that people that produce art online and share how they do it are successful. So I think we're going to see more and more people like this streaming their art online. Like, the best way for me to prove that my art is handcrafted is to craft it by hand. I mean, that sounds like a stupid, redundant statement because it is, but the point is that anyone can jump onto my YouTube channel and see hundreds of hours of me producing the content that appear in my book and have no question that, well, yeah, Phil produces his own stuff. And then it becomes, well, you know, if I want to be an artist, there's a billion hours worth of how to be an artist on YouTube. Why don't you just sit your ass down and get good at your craft? Because it takes decades to get amazing at artwork. I mean, these kids these days with their built-in knowledge of how to do stuff, it probably only takes them 5 or 6 years to get to the level that's taken me a lifetime. But that's also progress. I don't mind. I've always been behind the curve. I've always been trying to catch up. I've always been the underdog in every project that industry that I've ever tried to get into. I'm just used to struggling against expectations. And honestly, that fuels a shitload of artists. Like, the diligence that you need to be able to push pixels for hundreds of hours to complete projects requires a level of stubbornness that is damn near fanatical. Like, you gotta be motivated to not burn out on this shit. Which is why AI cheats so bad. Like, you pay a shitload of money to a human that can produce art at a fast rate of a high quality. The AI shortcuts that process, but you have no editorial control of what is produced. You can't just say, "Yeah, I want her to look like have her that character is great, but I need her looking at her wristwatch." Can you? No, I need to hire an artist. Or, oh yeah, that random person looking at what's passing as a wristwatch is okay enough. I ain't dogging. I ain't dogging on nobody. Don't blame anyone for following the path that they need, that they think that they need to achieve with. It's just we got to be honest about what we're doing. And if you don't want to be honest, you got to really consider, how much of a grifter are you? Not a void. Oh yes, the baby nautiloids. I think infesting the eggs of massive creatures makes a lot of sense. Having bugs crawl into the brains of developing Kandori fetuses, that's, I think, a compelling effort. They could be just completely they could just be mutated tadpoles out of an elder brain's pool. That's a more PC way of potentially approaching the project, as in not killing baby whales in the process. And ultimately, I think that probably jives the most. Isn't it like a neolithid? No, not neolithid. Ultralithid? Is that what it is? It's just and then they have the brain golems. Brain golems are basically chunks of elder brain that are manifested as physical brutes to act as hands and shield for the brain against anything that's capable of getting through its thrall minions. But then there's when a tadpole is out of control and just continues to grow and grow and grow until it's a massive, tentacly aboleth kind of tadpole giant monster leviathan thingy. I forget what they call it. I think it's an ultralithid, but it might be neolithid. There's the normal lithid squid-headed people, but then there's like super squid-head people, and they're either called ultralithid or neolithid. And then the other thing, the colossal leviathan tentacle creature, is the other word. And I think that's ultimately a better way to express how these living ship sort of things come into being. So I think I'm going to go with that these things are basically plucked at a very small, early stage from the elder brain pool, and what might be identified as something that could become a leviathan tadpole someday is specifically engineered specifically to do that, becoming one of these things. And as they continue to age, they evolve into the nautiloids. And that could just be a matter of time, I guess. I mean, it's going to take time. I don't know if it's worth collapsing. I don't know if there's a particular need to go into how long that would take. But I guess if I was doing like like a true ecology book, I would need to know that. I don't know what, like maybe a year for every 5 feet. So these things are 20 feet in size, so it'd take 4 years of advanced engineering to get this thing to a point where it could be an actual cuttlefish. And then the nautiloids in the background are 200 feet. That's 40 years. Which means that we have the opportunity to build scale between from 5 feet to 20 feet, and then from 20 feet to 50 feet, and then from 50 feet to 200 feet. That'd be the 4 stages. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 true stages, but I could also have like a 50 foot, 100 foot, 150 foot, and then 200 foot, scaling from cuttlefish into nautiloid as as adolescent ships that the team would be able to fight. And then once you get to the nautiloid 200 foot status, then they could continue to grow into motherships or elder ships that can scale up typically to 500 feet in size, carrying elder brains through space to colonize new dimensions through the astral sea. See, all that shit just kind of curves together. And then you could have like a really high level space opera campaign. Like this could effectively be similar to the Illithid invasion from the Robotech series, or Most Piata if you're in Japan. That could be a really, really fun space opera campaign. Alert. So that would mean that you'd like be able to fight thralls with small fighter craft, like 10-foot cuttlefish craft. You could be fighting at the dungeon scale, but then the craft could fly away, leaving the thralls behind to die. Like it spits out a bunch of thralls and then it yeets out of the battle, going back to its mother nautiloid, informing the Illithid there that there's interlopers such as the characters. So the Illithid is motivated to send a cloud of cuttlefish defenders These are all awakened creatures, so they have their own sentience. God, that's actually starting to shape up the sounds of a pretty fucking cool supplement. You could frame it around elves, Githyanki, and Skro being the three available factions that the characters can choose from, and each would have their own army or their own fleet of fighter craft and vessels to combat the Illithid threat with. Githyanki can lean into the Drake Warden aesthetic while Skrull and elves can go the path of mecha pilots and carrier ships. Like we were talking about yesterday, for the Skrull, the goblin arrows, the scorpions, the mammoth are the brunt of what their army would be. But then you could also do like ogre mecha. I'm not sure what that would look like offhand. But I like the idea of like ogre mage being leaders of these armadas, and like maybe goblins. You have the goblin arrow, which is a fast throwaway fighter craft that can technically be fired from a trebuchet and don't actually need a spelljamming helm to yeet from your trebuchet launch deck to hit the enemy craft. The problem is if you miss, then you're drifting, and those goblins and that craft are lost. But if there's no helm on it, the Skrull army wouldn't really care. It's just a few gobos on a board that got launched into space. Good day. Next. So when those mammoths hit you with a trebuchet shot, you're gonna take the piercing damage from the goblin blade. Goblin blades are 15-foot craft, right? You can load it into a trebuchet and launch it. It'll hit the enemy craft. It'll deal the D12 times 10 damage that you would get from the trebuchet shot. And now you have a bunch of goblins on deck tearing up your ship, killing your crew. So it's a fun little mercenary attack thing. It's just that if you miss, you got a bunch of dead goblins floating through space. But if you miss, then the goblins could use their held action to disembark from the ship, from their ship when they realize that they're going to miss the mark, so they can fall off into your gravity field and then slowly swim their way across the gravity plane to crawl onto deck to start fires and cause trouble. So even if the initial shot misses, the goblins can still be a threat. That works pretty good, actually. So maybe we'll lean into that idea. I like that idea a lot. That's really cool. So we might have to do that. And instead of Githyanki, I think I want to use Warforged. Auto gnomes don't have to breathe. Warforged are like tanky versions and medium-sized versions of like the small-sized auto gnome scout version. Leadership of the Warforged can be it can be docents that are specialized in the persuasion, investigation, or insight proficiencies, and has military history loaded into its memories. So it becomes a logic combat computer that can be plugged into. This is the way that I ran my the Warforged campaign, the Warforged Redemption campaign. It was no, that wasn't it. It was the decommissioned bunker campaign, where they would go in to Warforged strongholds that didn't get the message that the last war had ended, so they're still on high defense, which makes them makes them a passive threat to the community. There was a lot of these things that were in the mountains between Aundair and Thrain. So there's a bunch of a bunch of bunkers that are nested in there that don't acknowledge that the war is over, and after so many years have gone insane, viewing any organic as a threat to the position of the bunker. So it has a bunch. So there's an AI that, or a docent that is commanding the bunker structure. It has automated turrets that it has communication with through other docents. So as you go into a bunker and you start disabling defenses, you start acquiring docents, little AI docents as loot that you can load into different mecha defense systems that you find out as scrap in the battlefield. And if you can fix the tech that you find and have spare docents on hand, you can load a docent into the fixed machine, and now you have an extra troop. So you can then use that new ally to storm another bunker to free more AI, to fuel more army, so you can keep pushing your way down these ravines that are lined with these pillbox bunkers, with AI that are taking shots at you with forced energy cannons. That was the campaign. And we did that in Numenera. And it was fucking epic. And that's what spawned the Warforged Redemption campaign that we ran in 4E, where we eventually awakened all of the Warforged and AI to recognize that they have souls, which I've talked about a couple times. But that would honestly be a very, very fun toolkit. That's a cool little campaign. I would not mind developing that out into a product someday. But the Warforged would make a natural choice for a space opera faction, because they can exist without oxygen. So it's easy for them, just like you can have just like a field of autonomes with swords just drifting in space, waiting for a gravity field to pluck them up to cause them to awaken, and then assess the threat and start attacking it if they don't identify it as an ally. Because they don't know where they are in space. They just know that they have directions that if they get swept up into the gravity field, explore, and if any flesh is discovered, kill it. So like if a cloud of these autonome killbots were to like get swept up by a plant creatures, I wonder how they would assess that. It's not flesh. There were no plant creatures on the enemy docket when these things were created. So it could be that you could form a neutral pseudo-trust between rogue autonomes and there are no real plant creatures in D&D. That'd be a cool campaign too. But yeah, you get a docent, and you can plug a docent into the pilot role, and then all the different weapons. That's where the that campaign is where the base roots of my weapon, my ship role system for this supplement. That's the roots of it, where each docent would take on a role that would fulfill the action economy for the mecha. And the bigger the mecha, the more docents that it needed to operate all of its systems. You could get by with just one of them, right? To pilot the thing and do melee attacks. But all the subsystems like shielding, detection, ranged weapon systems. All of that required attention and action economy. So if you only had one docent, it was constantly having to drop into different subsystems to be able to perform different roles of the mecha. It's designed. Their tech is not designed for flesh, so any fleshers can't steal the tech and use it against them unless they have access to their own warforged docents. And once Sire was destroyed and the creation forge was destroyed, no one was creating docents anymore. So the docents that were out there were all that were left. So mecha was useless if you found it in a field. It's just a giant hunk of adamantine, unless you had docents that could empower it and make it do things. But then that sparks fear in the community. It's like, fuck, that Colossus is moving, and its last program was to destroy everyone that we're now farming around it. That's a serious threat. We need to deal with that. That's a fun little campaign piece that opens the door for you starting to accumulate an army of sentient machines that are willing to fight for you if only they had a goal. And so that introduces the idea of ascending awareness to reinstate your humanity, as it were, to assert that this docent is encasing a soul that has a history, feelings, and a right to exist, and that starts the social political aspect of the docent of the Warforged. Not bad. So this book is the basic ship mechanics to do all of that. And then beyond this book is the mecha, how to further develop fighter craft into fighting mecha. And then among those mecha, building out the AI faction of Warforged, and then designing the unique mecha that compose their fleet. And then to build encounters and a goal into what that fleet will achieve and how characters can engage with them. And that's the beginnings of a Warforged redemption campaign. But I don't know anymore if I want to stay on the DM's Guild to do that. So if I'm going to build a mecha book, I'm going to have to reverse engineer it on drive-through or as a Kickstarter, where this book is starting with Spelljammer vessels and reverse engineering down into infernal war machines, into golems as mecha. We could build ground up in a DTRPG project where we start with mecha and small craft, and then build up to larger vessels that aren't dependent on spelljamming helms as the narrative for how things go. We can then decouple that lore from the Wizard's IP to be able to operate independently. But we would at the same time be able to point to this spelljamming book and say, this is the kind of scaling mechanics that we're looking to introduce into the mecha book. so that we can respect the Spelljammer Wizards IP while also acting independently. So this book, I guess, essentially becomes a massive proof of concept for the Kickstarter campaign I can launch to. If you think that's cool, let me do a sci-fi version of this where it's real. Well, that's actually very Starfinder by nature. So I'm going to have to consult with Ukulele Bard about PF Infinite. I think they're changing their policies, but as I understand, we have more flexibility in doing Kickstarters with Pathfinder content than we do with Wizards content. But I don't know any specifics about that, and I am not a Starfinder. I'm aware of Starfinder. I've never been an enthusiast of it. But I need a home for these concepts. I don't know if Lancer has the lift to warrant using their license for any of this content. I certainly don't understand or appreciate the Lancer vibe. So I don't know if that's a good place for me to take these concepts or not. But I can definitely express these physics, these game physics, in different languages other than what's being published through Spelljammer. Spelljammer is just one possible version of how these mechanics can be presented in general. It's also entertaining the idea of going with Renegade using Essence 20, but they seem very IP focused and a little militant about their IPs. I don't think they have a share license available even to invite me through, which is their, that's their loss. But sorry, I'm in business ramble mode. I hope you guys don't mind. It can get boring, but I'm trying to parse out here, like where can we take this stuff once it's published. I almost want to kick myself for being loyal, quote unquote, to Wizards for producing this, but seriously, it was Spelljammer and Descent into Avernus that made this possible. I think ethically, I'm kind of committed to giving unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but for anything moving forward, I don't feel beholden anymore. And I think Wizards has kind of sabotaged good faith. So I'm not necessarily on board for whatever they're doing in the future. He's kind of demonstrated repeatedly they're not really smart enough to know what to do with this kind of tech, even if they had access to it. What the fish? Oh. What's going on over there? Hold on. Something's wonky in here. That is. Like, I don't have to call them Warforged. I can call them Warmech for the general category of self-piloted combat golems. And I don't have to call them docents. I could call them like sentience, SENTINTS, sentience. I can also call them psyches, or I could call them conscience. Good. So far, all this jives. There we go. That feels good. Line art, merge all that in together. Where are you coming from, buddy? Tentacles. Tentacles need more work. So let's work the tentacles. Yeah, I'm good with that. Thicken that up like that. I'll just smudge this all together here in a few minutes. Just get that together. Okay, we can be like that. We can duplicate this group. We can then merge this group. We can then apply this mask to that group. We can then drop that group into the puddle there, and then clean up the underbelly here. Come on, smooth for me now. Woof. There's a massive woof going on inside here, and I think it all has to do with that shit. If I get rid of all that stuff and just leave it as like a glassy eye, I think we're gonna be better off overall. Which means I can replace this port down there. I kind of like the glassiness of that. Yeah, I just like the vibe of this better. I think it's a better decision. So we'll fix the back cuddle, and then we'll fix the token so it doesn't have that frame. I think we'll be better off for it. There. Perfect. Not a little bit too much. Let's go with. That's pretty good. That actually is pretty good. Contentment has been attained. Let's get back to something we're discontent with. Come on, my dude. Woof, that curve there. All right, this guy needs some fixing. Let's stop futzing on tentacles and let's get into physical. Merge. Smudge that down. I spent a lot more time on this than I thought I was, but I think what it is that I haven't actually illustrated these cuttlefish before, so I'm taking my time to make sure I like the language on them. Like, I can crack out a bombard ship or a damselfly a lot quicker now that I've built a couple of them. You know, this is kind of like a nautiloid. It's a lot easier for me to make a nautiloid now because I've made a few of them. I think it's just a lack of familiarity that's causing the slow grind. Meow. Rough edge. Come on, Kearney, you can do better than that. Challenge. This is that dopamine I was talking about. The challenge of hitting the angle right and then being rewarded once I succeed at the task. This is pressure being built inside of me to achieve. Can't back away from it. Good, we're still at 20 minutes. I can figure out this curve in 20 minutes. A little wider. There. When you see a young artist that's like, hey, I put a lot of effort into this project, look at it. Like, that tells me they haven't spent enough time as a creator to appreciate that anything requires effort, and that's not a qualifier of quality. It means that whoever that creator is used to getting results, not exerting effort. Exerting effort is the reward unto itself for a developed artist that is used to suffering through the pain of problem solving. Effort is the pump that fuels the chemical that releases the dopamine that provides the pride as a result of completing the project properly. You don't reach out saying, hey, I tried hard to make this happen, give me praise. It's just, you can seek praise, that's fine, but no one gives a shit about how much effort you put into it. Well, I guess maybe they do now as like a virtue signal for having to put effort into it. But me saying, hey, I put a lot of effort in this project, check it out. It's like, that's just praise baiting. No one technically gives a shit in comparison, but unless you're comparing it to AI, which takes zero effort. Like someone says, look what I made with AI. It's like, you're just pathetic. No one is appreciating your ability to type in make pretty girl with sword, and then you just choosing the one that looks the least horrible and then posting it online. That is the ultimate in low effort praise. It's like a pretty chick duck facing at a camera and then getting a shitload of simp likes. You know, no one's respecting you for being good looking because you were born that way. No one respects a quote-unquote artist that presses a button that says make girl art. Which I think is what the underlying simmer, the simmer of just content with people using AI in the creative space, because you're not creating anything. It's like the indie RPG space was someplace someone goes to sweat and grind and bleed for a project, and when it's done, they put effort into it. That's assumed. But are the results any good? Now it's effort equals 0. How's the results? It's like, I mean, you know, it's, you create it with AI. I guess it looks generic. But I think this AI generating content is just the perfect technology for the state of where the developed world is at right now, where everyone is seeking praise for minimal effort and has no personal value and is looking for people to justify their existence for simply being there, which is antithetical to everything that reality has been built upon up to this point. But I don't want to be preachy. There, that's looking a lot better now. Nipper. I am happy that I've done business wrong every step of the way in my career. If I had done business correctly and had built an empire out of my abilities, I would not be able to connect and sympathize with new artists that are trying to figure out how to navigate this AI space and build something of their own. I have the edge in that I have the skill set developed, but I haven't done anything to develop it, to develop business out of it. It's all just been on the fly, casual, commission stuff, starting to tinker around with content production. Turns out I'm pretty good with it. So even though I've been in the peripheries of the industry for 30 some odd years, I've never developed it into anything substantive. So if I am capable of building this out into a larger audience and something sustainable for myself and family, I will be infinitely more useful to anyone else that comes along attempting to achieve the same goals, because I'm not starting my relationship with AI from I am threatened by this. This could take away the business that I've been attempting to build so meticulously over the past 30 years. I now feel threatened. I'm just getting started at developing myself into a serious label. And I'm having to contend with the same problems as any 20-something-year-old that has to deal with trying to build themselves into a reputable artist or a content creator, just like everyone else. At one hand, it's going to be a shitload of work, and I'm a lot older than these 20-year-olds. On the other hand, I've got a really stable income and a job that I legitimately enjoy that allows me to approach this from a casual stance. That takes away the pressure of necessity, which spawns innovation, sure. But it also allows me to approach it a lot more academically and cautiously, because I don't have to make any jumps. I don't have to make any split-second decisions that force me into figuring out what I'm going to do about food and then potentially regretting those mistakes later. I can afford to approach this slowly and understand where it is that I'm putting my foot before I take another step. And I greatly appreciate the universe bringing that opportunity into my existence. I'd rather suffer through all the slings and arrows in the trenches with all the new artists trying to figure it out and be able to lead from the front than to have an already established fan base that's going to buy stuff from me no matter what anyway. And for me to then be leading from the rear saying, you can do it. Prove it, old man. You don't understand the challenges that we're going through currently. So instead of being a staff sergeant, I'm going to demote myself down to private. Start slogging through the shit through it with the rest of you guys like Private Zim from Starship Troopers. I'm going to catch the fucking bug. I'm going to do the job until you find somebody better or I get killed. Let that prayer be my battle hymn. I can't help you have a good idea. If God's willing, I'll be able to help show you how you can make it happen. That is my prayer. Yeah. There we are. Stubbornness paying off, folks. There's the kick. Yeah. Flood that dopamine of success. That's when I get the payoff. So for the past 20 minutes, I've been riding this edge of not good enough. I don't deserve it yet. I have to keep pushing it. With holding the release of tension and the oxytocin rush and serotonin that are going to kick in as the backwash of sustained pressure is released, as realizing that the work we did is accurate and good. Oh, and that's the chemical rush that every artist is craving. Which is why it's so easy for artists to get into drug addiction or alcoholism, because they're looking for that rush and they aren't inspired. And they find a chemical process that makes it easier for them to receive that dosing that they want. And it destroys their motivation, because why would I apply that much pressure and grind into a curve when I could just kick back a Mickey's, you know? Just give me a 40 of Mickey's, I will dull my need for striving. Nothing in reality provides that rush effect. Quite like producing art does. So when you're posting stuff and you're describing this as, this is something that took me a lot of work to produce, you aren't getting that chemical stimulation, that release of satisfaction. You aren't achieving anything. You haven't applied any pressure. When you get that chemical rush of success, you don't give a crap anymore about how much effort was put into it, because you're getting your dose reward. You don't have to reach out through social media to get the dopamine of approval. That's an external source. You haven't built anything. You aren't defining your space and then realizing it. It's that realization of your own personal goals that art so readily demonstrates. That's why artists make superior leaders, because they're honing the willpower to be able to grind something into existence. The long-term applied pressure needed to convert pixels into diamonds. So when I'm spamming an art piece on Discord and Twitter and Facebook or wherever, is like, hey, here's the most recent piece that I built, I'm not looking for you to praise me. You know, the compliments are great, and I love that the folks that like my work do, and I certainly appreciate the praise from my peers. Of course I do. But I'm not posting it to get a like. I'm posting it to pull more people into this process, into being here, into having conversations, into looking for themselves to see how much work artists need to put in to produce any single piece. To get them to fall in love with the process with the rest of us. I'm only posting to RPG pages. You know, like, hey, here's artwork that I produce. Here's a thing that I'm building. Here's an idea you can play with. Jump on board with us. Anyway, that's the idea. Oh, shit. Yeah, all right. Well, it's 7:57 here in Seattle. It's time for me to go pay unto Caesar what is Caesar's. So we're going to leave this be as it is right here, right now, right here, right now. Come on. Tentacles. Where is that weirdness coming in from? Let's what the actual fuck? Yeah, that's weirdness. I won't get rid of it, but I don't want to see it. There. Perfect. All right, so that's where we're at right now. Hey, we made progress. We're coming along, guys. I am happy with the progress so far. It's obviously slower than I want. It's always slower than I want. That is my struggle. That is my eternal hate. But we are done for the day. We're going to be back in 25 hours to work on the landscape painting that we started last week. We'll be back again on Monday to continue this. I've got a lot of time off on my Saturday that I'll be off stream, that I'll be working on this and the other pieces that we still have in the equipment and ship section. I think I can hopefully get it finished by Monday, and then we'll go back into the hazards and we'll finish the hazards art, and then we'll move into combat. We'll move into the combat. Looking forward to that. So thanks a lot for being here, guys. Like, subscribe. I think we picked up some more subscribers. We're at 194 now. So we picked up 2 from this time yesterday. So thanks a lot for being on board, people. If hopefully this stuff is interesting to you, gain value. The conversations are cool. Be welcome to shout out at me anytime, either down in the comments down below for me to take a look at, or reach out to me on Twitter at Phil Kearney, or if you know where I lurk on the Discords, be welcome to hit me there. I'll see you guys on the other side. Thanks a lot for being here.